Welcome back, focused learners. Today we're cracking open our visual notebooks for a real masterclass on human engineering. We're diving into a text from way back in 1937, but honestly, its principles are so deeply wired into human psychology that they are absolutely still game changers today. I'm talking, of course, about Dale Carnegie's legendary work. So let's map out these complex social dynamics together and stay laser-focused on what actually matters.
Now, you might be sitting there wondering, why on earth are we dedicating a whole explainer to an 80-year-old book? Well, get this. Research by the Carnegie Foundation revealed something completely mind-blowing. Even in highly technical fields, think engineering, only about 15% of a person's financial success comes from their technical knowledge. 15%! So what's the other 85%? It is entirely due to skill in human engineering. Your personality, your ability to lead people, that's the whole shebang. So we're unpacking the absolute ultimate source material on exactly how you can develop that crucial 85%.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because this specific insight is really the bedrock of everything we're going to cover today. Carnegie makes this profound point. When we deal with people, we've got to remember, we are not dealing with creatures of logic. Nope. We are dealing with creatures of emotion. We're all bristling with prejudices, and we're totally motivated by pride and vanity. If you try to engineer human relationships using pure cold logic, you're going to hit a brick wall every single time for sure.
To make this super efficient, we've organized Carnegie's massive framework into 4 really digestible sections: the foundation, the connection, the persuasion, and finally, the leadership.
Let's kick things off with Part 1, the foundation, handling people.
So there are 3 core rules for building this foundation. First up, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Second, give honest, sincere appreciation. And third, arouse an eager want. Let's zoom in on that appreciation piece for a second. Charles Schwab became one of the very first business executives to ever earn $1 million salary. And you gotta ask, why? Was he just some steel genius? Actually, no. Schwab himself said his secret sauce was simply his ability to arouse enthusiasm among his workers. He absolutely refused to criticize anyone. Instead, he made sure he was lavish in his praise. He understood on a deep level that hurting people doesn't change them. It literally just breeds resentment.
Which brings us to the next point. Instead of condemning people, let's try to actually understand them. Think about Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. General Meade directly disobeyed Lincoln's orders, which allowed the Confederate Army to completely escape when they were trapped. As you can imagine, Lincoln was absolutely furious. He wrote this incredibly scathing, bitter letter to Meade. But you know what Lincoln did with that letter? Nothing. He never sent it. It was actually found hidden among his papers after he died. Lincoln realized in that moment that bitter criticism wouldn't change the past. It would only make Meade defensive and totally ruin his future usefulness. I mean, if a US president can learn to withhold criticism in the literal middle of a war, we can surely manage it in our daily lives, right?
So that brings up a pretty massive question. If we can't criticize and we can't force people, how in the world do you make someone genuinely want to do something? Think about the last time you tried to persuade someone. A colleague, a spouse, your kid. Be honest, did you spend the whole time talking about what you wanted?
The real answer here is to arouse in the other person an eager want. The source material shares this fascinating story about parents who were really struggling with a young son who just wouldn't stop bedwetting. Scolding didn't work. Shaming definitely didn't work. So they totally flipped the script. They figured out what the boy actually wanted. And what he wanted was to feel like a big boy. So they took him out shopping and let him pick out his own grown-up bed and grown-up pajamas. They appealed directly to his pride. His desire to be a man was so fiercely aroused that his own pride basically forced him to keep that new bed dry. They talked entirely in terms of what he wanted, not what they wanted. Such a game changer.
Moving right along to Part 2, the connection, making people like you. If you want to draw people in, the strategies are honestly incredibly simple. Take smiling, for instance. I know, it sounds almost too basic, right? But the book details this famously grumpy New York stockbroker who decided to run a little experiment. He forced himself to genuinely smile at his wife, the building doorman, the subway cashier, his colleagues, everyone. And the results? He completely revolutionized his marriage, the whole vibe of his office transformed, and he actually ended up making significantly more money. Why does this work? Because a smile instantly says, "Hey, I like you. You make me happy. I'm glad to see you." It just completely disarms people. And right alongside a good smile is this absolute gem of a rule. A person's name is, to that person, the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Andrew Carnegie, the legendary steel magnate, learned this super early on. He was trying to secure this massive order for steel rails for the Pennsylvania Railroad. The president of that railroad was a guy named Edgar Thomson.
So what did Carnegie do? He built a brand new steel mill in Pittsburgh and literally named it the Edgar Thomson Steel Works. And well, guess who got that massive railroad order? Yep. People are so incredibly proud of their own names that they will go to wild lengths just to see them honored.
All right, so we've built the foundation and we've made the connection. But what happens when conflict inevitably rears its ugly head? Let me ask you, can you actually win an argument? Seriously, think back to your last really heated debate. Even if you completely, totally dismantled the other person's logic, did they walk away liking you? Did they happily change their mind and adopt your point of view? Probably not.
Which brings us to part 3, the persuasion, winning people over.
So, a major key to winning people over is to admit when you're wrong and do it quickly and emphatically. Dale Carnegie himself tells this great story about walking his dog in the park without a muzzle, which was strictly against the law. A police officer caught him, chewed him out, let him off with a warning, but said never do it again. Well, a few weeks later, Carnegie did it again and ran smack into the exact same officer. But before the cop could even get a word out, Carnegie aggressively condemned his own actions. He said he had absolutely no excuses, he was 100% in the wrong. Because he took all that criticism upon himself, the officer's only way to feel important was to take this magnanimous, forgiving attitude. The cop actually defended Carnegie and let him off the hook again. Wild, right?
Woodrow Wilson once said that if you come with your fists doubled, the other person's fists are going to double up twice as fast. But if you sit down to take counsel, you'll find you really aren't so far apart. John D. Rockefeller Jr. proved this during a terribly violent, bloody miners' strike in Colorado. Instead of fighting these furious strikers with cold facts and logic, he went in and addressed them warmly. He called them friends, he praised their families, and spoke with supreme graciousness. And the result of that? The men literally went back to work without another word about the wages they had just been violently striking over. It's like the old saying goes, a drop of honey catches way more flies than a gallon of gall.
But hey, let's be real here. Sometimes, whether you're at work or at home, people just make mistakes. We can't always just ignore them. So how on earth do you correct someone or get them to change their behavior without arousing resentment and making them absolutely hate you? That is what we tackle in Part 4, the leadership changing behavior.
When you're attempting to change someone's behavior, try calling attention to their mistakes indirectly. John Wanamaker, the famous department store magnate, was walking through his store one day when he saw a customer waiting at a counter. The customer was being completely ignored, while the clerks just stood off to the side, huddled together, chatting. Now, Wanamaker didn't yell at them, he didn't cause a massive scene, he simply slipped behind the counter, served the customer himself, and then just handed the package to the clerks to be wrapped as he walked away. Boom! He communicated the standard perfectly, indirectly, and completely without stripping his employees of their dignity.
Another incredibly vital technique is to ask questions instead of barking direct orders. Owen D. Young, who was a highly successful industrialist, never told his assistants, do this or don't do that. Never. Instead, he would ask things like, do you think that would work? Or, you might consider this. Let's face it, no one likes taking orders. By asking questions, you give people the space to fix things themselves. It stimulates their creativity, and honestly, most importantly, it allows them to save face. They end up taking real ownership of the solution because they feel like they had a hand in crafting it.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that just reading about these concepts or watching this explainer isn't enough. Learning is an active process, folks. We learn by doing. The source material actually suggests a fantastic little game to force these habits into your daily routine. Step 1. Catch yourself breaking one of these rules, like criticizing or interrupting someone. Step 2. Pay your spouse, a friend, or a coworker a $1 penalty every single time they catch you slipping up. Make it a lively, fun game, because remember, you aren't just passively acquiring information here, you are actively attempting to form entirely new habits. You're practically attempting a whole new way of life.
Well, we've mapped out the foundation of handling people, making true connections, persuading gently, and leading effectively. But I want to leave you with one final, pretty provocative question to ponder. Are you ready to stop the easy, impulsive habit of criticizing and commit to the hard, incredibly rewarding work of actually understanding people? The very next time you feel that urge to condemn someone rising up, I challenge you to just pause, remember this explainer, and try to arouse an eager want instead. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time.